Hey everybody, welcome back to my garage. I know it's been some time since I posted anything to my channel, but I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about my latest acquisition. We're going to call this car Wilma. She replaces Roller Girl. Roller Girl was a 2007 NC1. Wilma is a 2015 NC3 Club Edition. And I bought her from an older gentleman out of California, but she actually has a Texas history. Unfortunately, that history includes a salvage title. So the previous owner lived in the DFW area, and he bought the car from an auction site, from what I can tell. And there was a lot of suspension damage on the car, but very little body damage. So most of the issues were in the front subframe and also a couple of bent arms in the rear. So just judging from the pictures, I think this car was a track car, so it either went off track or it spun on the street and hit a curb because the wheels were broken. Some of the control arms were bent, and also the coilovers were also damaged. The previous owner replaced all of the suspension and also the subframe. There was some body damage to this rear quarter panel, and I took it to a shop and they patched it up a little bit, but I don't think they did that great of a job because there's a little bit of a gap right here between the rocker panel and the rear quarter. And then I don't know if you can see on camera, but the paint match is way off. The other issue was, I think there was some damage to this door, and I think this is a replacement door because this racing stripe is not the factory NC Club stripe, but rather an aftermarket one. So I think this was another True Red door, and then he just put on the stripe to match. I want to talk about the fenders here in the rear. So these fenders were rolled because I guess it used to be a track car, and I want to say that they probably had 17x9s or 17x10s with much wider tires. So that required a fender roll. So these aren't rolled completely flat, but they're a pretty aggressive roll. This quarter panel has already been repaired, but there was a lot of chipping on the paint along the fender well. So that's going to be also the case on the other side. And then this front fender is also rolled as well. If you take a look at the condition of the paint, the hood itself could probably use a good polish, but there are a lot of rock chips all over this hood. So I'll probably have to get this repainted. One of the other things that the previous owner didn't do was to replace the bumper. So judging from the pictures, it looked okay, but when I received the car, there was a crack along the bumper where it attaches to the fender, and it was cracked on both sides. And once we took off the bumper, I was surprised that this bumper was still attached. So I went ahead and replaced that. And again, the shop did an okay job of painting it because it looks glassy, but the color match is way off. In terms of other damage to the car, I've replaced the side skirts with these AP package skirts, but the ones that were originally on the car had a lot of scratches along here, and then you could still see some faint scratches on the driver's side rear quarter panel. And then, as you can see here, let me see if I can get the camera adjusted. There is some paint chipping right there on the rear quarter panel. That's it in terms of the cosmetic blemishes. Oh, I take that back. There were a couple of other things on the rear. This fuel cap door was dented. I've replaced this with a fuel door cap from an '07 True Red car. And then this rear bumper here has a lot of scratches and deeper ones here, and then also along the rear. In terms of the interior condition, the car had a broken center console that I've replaced. And then it looks like this seat was replaced, or at least the cover was replaced, because you have white stitching here, and then you have red stitching on the bottom cushion. I suspect that maybe the airbag went off, or maybe it was just weathered right here and wore through, so he replaced this upper upholstery with a new one. It also came with a fake wood trim, but luckily the seller kept the original red painted dash trim and sent that along with the car when I had it shipped here. And I've reinstalled that. The other issue that he had was that the stereo was actually, he put in a Bose unit, and the clubs don't have a Bose unit, so there's just not enough amperage to power the speakers. So I went ahead and replaced the head unit with a Sony one. Other things that were on the car when I received it, he had some inky 17x8 TS4s with Yokohama AO 52s. And they had an odd size. They were 215/40. So they were a lower profile than what we're used to on these NCs. I've replaced them with the FM Kogekis that were on Roller Girl. The other issues with the car was that the brake rotors were really rusted, and the calipers they worked fine, but they were visually not in good shape. Let's go ahead and pop the hood real quick. So this is primarily a stock car. As I stated before, the car was originally purchased in DFW, and then the owner moved to California. So when he moved to California, he had to remove the aftermarket exhaust. So in here now is a stock header as well as a stock mid-pipe. And both of those two things have about 1,000 miles on them. In terms of the axle back, there was a Racing Beat muffler that I went ahead and sold off, and I put in a street single with a welded tip. In terms of future plans for the car, I'm going to do some additional cosmetic work. I want to replace these fenders because there is a lot of paint chips on the fenders themselves, so they'll need to be repainted. And I don't really like having these front fenders rolled because I usually just run 17x8s, and I don't run an aggressive 17x9 or 17x10 wheel and tire combo. So I think what I'm going to do, well, I don't think, I actually know, I've actually found replacement parts for both fenders. So I'll be swapping those out, and they're in great condition, and the paint already matches. So I'll be swapping those out and just storing these in case I need them later. I'll probably end up respraying the hood, and then also trying to find a shop to do a better paint match on the front bumper as well as that rear quarter panel. And in terms of the interior, I'm going to do my normal stuff, which is, like I've already said, I've replaced the stereo. I'll replace the rear view mirror. and then I'll also put in a foam mount. These seats, I have another set of seats that I'll probably swap out because these smell a little bit funky. I think there was the previous owner, or maybe the owner prior to him, did a lot of sweating in this car, so it smells like a gym locker. So I'll be replacing that. I did replace these rocker panels, but I bought these clips off of Amazon and they don't seem to fit very well. So I'll probably end up pulling this stuff back out and then replacing those with OEM clips, which are way more expensive. But I guess that needs to be done. In terms of other things, while I was sourcing the fenders, I also found a rear bumper from Mazda Nissan Heaven out in Fort Worth. So I'll be replacing this rear bumper. While I was there, they had a passenger door that was in perfect condition, and they were asking $200 for that door. So I went ahead and picked that up, and I'll probably at some future date replace the door shell and swap out the internals. In terms of power upgrades, I'm finally going to do a 2.5 swap on my own. So I've had several 2.5s before, but they were all done by Dynotronics. I think it's high time for me to learn how to do it on my own. Okay, before we get into the 2.5, let's talk about what attracted me to buying this car. The most obvious thing is going to be this factory OEM hardtop. The previous owner bought this new from the dealership, and it has all of the mounting brackets and also the trim panels here. And there aren't any scratches on the top. I had a hardtop on my CY, or my competition yellow car that I sold, and that one actually had some light scratches on the top that was caused during shipping. This one doesn't have any evidence of that. The other really big goodie are the Öhlins coilovers. So when the owner bought it in the auction, it had Öhlins already and that were damaged. So from what he told me, he replaced all four with newer parts. So that's also a big bonus. All in, when I purchased the car from him, it was $10,000, and it cost me about $900 to ship from California to here. Since then, I've replaced the bumper and repaired the rear quarter panel, and that set me back a little bit. But overall, given the parts and the overall condition of the car, I still think it was a value purchase. All right, here is the 2.5 motor that I've been prepping to install into Wilma, the red NC. This is from a 2016 Ford Fusion. I bought it from another car guy locally here in the Austin area. He got it from LKQ. It has about 30,000 miles on it. And I'll quickly talk about what I've done so far. So I've obviously taken off the timing cover and the crank pulley. And I've gone ahead and installed the Brian Crower cams. So these are the stage 2 cams. So they didn't require any upgraded springs. You can just use the stock ones. I'll quickly talk about the timing process. But basically, the first thing you need to do is to time the engine. And there is a little timing tool, which is basically a plug that you insert here on the side. And then when you turn the crank, the bottom of the crank will actually butt up against the plug. And that's how you know that the crank is going to be in time. And in order to install the cams, you need to release the belt tensioner, remove that, remove the cam sprocket bolts here, and then basically just take off the timing chain and the cam sprockets. And then essentially you will need to remove all of the cam caps here, and then also remove the VVT solenoid. And once you do that, you kind of just seat the cams in place. Make sure that the tone ring here is going to be on the intake side, and then you want your lobes kind of at a 45-degree angle in the front of the engine. So basically on the intake, it needs to be 45 degrees inward, and then also on the exhaust side as well. So once you kind of have that roughly seated, you have this cam timing tool, which basically just slides in the back, and then there are some reliefs along the back profile of the cam, and they just slide in. So you want to make sure that this is can easily be inserted, and then once you do that, you can just put back on the cam caps here, and you want to make sure that you keep them in the same order and the same orientation. When I pulled the valve cover, you can see that there are markings already on the cam caps. So all of these blue markings are on the inside, and then on the exhaust side, they were on the outside. So just make sure that that's in the same order, and then you kind of just torque everything down. I haven't installed the timing cover yet because I need to pull the oil pan off of my 2.0, and that can't happen until I remove the engine from the car. But there is, if you can take a look at the crank here, it's smooth and there's not a keyway. So in order for the crank pulley to actually turn on this crankshaft, it uses a diamond washer. So there should be a diamond washer here. I've already removed it, but I have a replacement one that would go here. But then there should also be another one behind this sprocket. And you will need to replace that one as well. I didn't replace the other one because there was no need for me to remove the sprocket. So I'm just going to replace the diamond washer from that butts up against the crank here. I've read online that some people don't bother with the other one, and some other folks say that it's a must. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and send it and see what happens. But you know, it'll be a learning lesson if I do need to pull out the engine one more time. The other thing I wanted to bring up too is I forgot what this is called, but basically you'll need to replace this part here because there is a little bit of a relief right here, and the one that comes in the 2.5 doesn't have this relief, and when you put in the plastic intake manifold, it'll hit up against this. So you can either take the original part and use a heat gun and try to indent that relief, or you can just buy this part. I think it was about $50. So that's the progress I have so far. I do want to talk about what my plans are to get the engine out. Okay, let's talk about my plan of attack for removing the engine from the car. I have the car jacked up on my quick jacks right now for illustration purposes, but there are two main schools of thought. One that everyone advocates for on the Facebook groups is to drop the motor and the subframe from the bottom and then either pulling it from the front or to the side of the car. And I think on the side you need less clearance in order to pull it out. The traditional approach would be to remove the transmission or disconnect the transmission from the motor and then pulling it from the top. The one video I've seen where they attempted it from the top, it kept on getting stuck on this cross member here. And I think that's because, you know, when you have your engine hoist, it's not going to lift it straight up, but rather it's going to be at a slight angle, and it keeps on getting caught on that cross member. So I think I'm going to take everybody's advice and do it from the bottom. Now, what I've seen people do is they put the car on jack stands and then they lift the car slightly in the front, and then that'll give them enough clearance to pull it through. Usually they do it on jack stands. I luckily have these quick jacks, which I think is going to come into play when I try to take it out. So I did a couple of measurements, and I want to walk you through my thinking so far. So this is me just thinking out loud, and I'm not sure if this is going to work or not. But the 2.5 motor, and we can just kind of use this as a reference. So from the top of this VVT solenoid to the bottom of that oil pan is about 26 inches. And we'll just say that even though the 2.5 is taller than the 2.0, we'll kind of use this measurement for all of our calculations. And I think what we need to do in order to clear it on the side is we need to clear the frame rails right here. And if you were to take a look at the car, the bumper bash bar is bolted onto the frame rail. So that is going to be roughly about here. So with the car jacked up on my quick jacks, from the tip of this mustache all the way to the floor is, I think it was 28 inches. And then while the car was on the ground, the top of the motor while the car was on the ground was about 32 inches. So I think we need to at least get this bash bar or the frame rail up to 32 inches. And I have a plan for that. So my quick jacks, they have these extension adapters. So normally you would use like a rubber block that's about 4 inches here or 3.5 inches here, and then you would lift up the car. That's what we have right there. So if we use these extensions, we get another 4 inches from that adapter. And since we're at 28 inches here, adding another 4 inches gets us to that 32. In order to drop the car down, I am going to buy a low profile motorcycle lift that's on casters. And from what I've read, that the height of that when it's flattened is about 5 inches. So give or take a few inches, we have 5 inches there and 26 inches there. So that's 31 inches. So that should be enough to clear the motor from the frame rails. The other plan, to give me a little bit more wiggle room, while the engine is still in the car, I'm going to remove the valve cover, and I'm also going to remove the VVT solenoid. That way, you know, we'll get an additional 2 to 3 inches for clearance. And if I do that, then hopefully I won't have to tilt the car at all, and it won't be as scary. The other thing here, I only have one set of wheel cribs, but my buddy's going to lend me his. I have them on the rear ones right here, but the front wheels, I need to lower the ride height in order to get enough clearance to slide the wheel cribs on top, underneath. So the reason why I have these wheel cribs is because in order to get the quick jacks, or to get the adapters on the quick jacks, I need to lift the car all the way up and then lower the car onto the cribs, and then I'll put on the adapters, and then re-raise the car, and hopefully that'll give me the additional 4 inches that I need. And then once we have the engine stand or the bike stand underneath the engine, that'll be enough to support the engine. And then I can also remove the or lower the subframe onto the stand, and then slowly let it down, versus kind of what I've seen some people do is they slowly unscrew the bolts so that it slightly lowers it on each side. But every time I've seen people do that, the car just seems to let go, and the subframe ends up dropping, and that's super sketch. And I kind of want to avoid being injured doing this install. So that's my plan of attack. If you guys have any recommendations, please leave them in the comments. Thanks.